Tulane punches its ticket to a New Year's Six bowl game by running over Central Florida to win the American Athletic, how they did it, and what it means for the Green Wave. Plus, LSU isn't there yet, but Brian Kelly's Tigers are not far away. We'll break down what happened in Atlanta in just year one for Kelly. Believe it or not, the Saints' Monday Nighter in Tampa Bay has huge playoff implications, and the black and gold are still alive. We'll preview the game with our Saints analyst, Nick Underhill. And the red-hot Pelicans are home for a Sunday afternoon special. All that and more tonight on 4th Down on 4. The Tulane Green Wave got the official word today. They are headed to Dallas for the Cotton Bowl. It's Tulane's first major bowl game since the 1940 Sugar Bowl. 2022 will go down as one of the best football seasons in Tulane history. Now, the Green Wave earned that bowl bid on Championship Saturday. LSU, meanwhile, lost to Georgia in the SEC Championship game. But as Brian Kelly said afterwards, the Tigers are not that far away. I'm Doug Mouton. Welcome to 4th Down on 4. We'll get to the Tigers in a minute, but let's start uptown as Tulane left no doubt in the American Athletic Championship game. Brooke Kirchhofer was there.
For the first time in school history, the Tulane Green Wave are American Athletic Conference champs. A goal set back in the offseason has now come to fruition.
Nick Anderson has been kind of one of our more vocal leaders, and he said this from the beginning. After the last game last year, he preached it every single day. Every player-led meeting we have, we ended it with a conference championship trophy picture, and we knew that this was our goal, and kind of just manifested it every single day, and it paid off.
In a rematch against Central Florida, Tulane knew they'd have to get out to a fast start and contain quarterback John Rhys Plumlee after letting him run free back in early November.
We had, a great plan, stopping the draw, stopping things like that they hurt us on in the previous game. I took my head to Plumlee. He's a great quarterback and that freshman quarterback, but, I think we had a great plan. I'm proud of the way our D-line played and our linebackers played and getting on out the quarterback.
Plumlee was sacked 4 times in the game, and between both UCF quarterbacks, they accounted for just 216 passing yards. Michael Pratt threw for a career-high 394 yards. 3 of his 4 passing touchdowns were at least 60 yards.
We had some big plays. We've kind of been grinded out, and we did grind out, I think, the first drive, but had some big plays. It's a big key with offensive football is get the ball in the hands of the playmakers who can make a 10-yard catch into a 50-yard gain. And Shea had a huge one down the sideline.
Explosive plays kept Tulane ahead of the Golden Knights throughout the game. To start the third quarter, Tyjae Spears ripped off a 60-yard rushing touchdown to put it 24-7 Green Wave.
I just got to make one guy miss, and I know if I could cut the ball back across the field, I knew I was going to score because sometimes they be poorly pursuing at tackling.
I've seen him do that so many times. He just he kind of has eyes in the back of his head, and he's got outstanding speed, and 199 yards is what he ended up having. I think he's a pro back. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Spears toughed it out for his team in the second half, in obvious pain, dealing with a hip pointer. When Central Florida closed the gap to put it 31-28 in the fourth quarter, Tulane did not blink, responding with 2 more touchdowns to seal the victory, showing the resilience of this group coming from a 2-10 season last year to now 10-2 and conference champions.
They were just throwing dirt over us, and for a while, it was hard to bounce back, but, if you keep your faith and you believe in your brothers that are next to you, flowers will grow, I promise you.
Tulane closes it out in dominating fashion with a 45-28 win and over 600 yards of offense. Up next, the Cotton Bowl versus USC. Reporting uptown, Brooke Kirchhofer, 4th Down on 4.
Yeah, good stuff, Brooke. The Cotton Bowl, January 2nd at Cowboys Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Southern Cal, number 10. Tulane ranked 16th after the win. Brooke caught up with longtime Green Wave broadcaster Steve Barrios to get some perspective.
To get to this moment for this team, just given what they've done in the last 2 years,
flipping from 2-10 to 10-2. How special is this for the school?
It's extremely special. This season is probably one of the most exciting seasons I've been doing football for Tulane for 40 years. So the 98 season has been the season that everyone's compared every other team to. They said in August that they wanted to play for a championship, which, I'm thinking, oh, sure, okay, let's just get back to a bowl, all right? But they believed in themselves and they did it. And as I said, this is my 40th year. I'm on my 11th head coach. Coach Fritz is my 11th head coach, and I can say this, undoubtedly, he's my favorite head coach.
Have you ever seen this at Tulane, a field being stormed in the way it was tonight?
Yes, I've seen it once before in 1973, and it was the first time that Tulane had beaten LSU in 25 years. They just rushed the field and they just stood around for hours. It was unbelievable. And so that's the closest thing that I can relate to tonight.
All of these group of 5 schools want to be on the map, want to put their school on the map, be a contender. Can this team move forward doing that?
Yeah, I think so. I think Coach Fritz has established a culture, here, not just a winning season, but he's established a culture. And he's going to bring players in that want to be at Tulane. They want to take advantage of what Tulane has to offer. And I think that's what this program is, where it's headed right now and the direction it's going in.
Yeah, now thanks to Steve Barrios. LSU, meanwhile, will play Purdue in the Citrus Bowl. The Tigers will be going for win number 10 in Brian Kelly's first season. Ricardo LeCompte reports from the SEC championship game in Atlanta.
Taking advantage of pivotal moments in a championship game. That's the difference between a program at the top and one still climbing. Georgia seized that moment in the first quarter of Saturday's SEC title game. The Bulldogs blocked an LSU field goal attempt. The Tigers thought the play was over at that point, but Christopher Smith alertly picked the football up and raced 96 yards for a Georgia touchdown.
It's our responsibility to have our guys alert in that situation. They were not alert, and that falls on coaching, and that falls on my shoulders, and I take full responsibility for that.
It took a little energy out of us, man. It took a lot actually, but we just tried to lean on each other and keep going.
The next pivotal moment arrived early in the second quarter. An unlucky bounce off Jack Besh's helmet resulted in an interception for Georgia. One play later, Stetson Bennett fired a touchdown pass to Ladd McConkey. The Georgia signal caller went on to tie an SEC title game record for touchdown passes in a single half with 4. His counterpart, Jaden Daniels, threw only 1 in the first half, a 53-yard catch and run to Kayshon Boutte. But Daniels came into Saturday not at 100%. Jaden Daniels re-aggravated the ankle injury in the second quarter and did not play in the second half. Garrett Nussmeier took over the LSU offense, and the redshirt freshman found success against the Georgia defense. He threw for nearly 300 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Whenever my number was called, I was ready. That was the whole mindset. To do my job. I've said that since the beginning of the year, since fall camp. I was going to play my role to the best that I could, do whatever I was asked to do. So, if they asked me to go in the game, I was ready. If not, then I was there to support Jaden.
Nussmeier's spark ignited a fire within the Tigers. They kept battling, despite being outclassed by Georgia.
It's hard to find that courage to keep fighting, and we outscored them 20-15 in the second half, so I believe that shows a lot. Going into next season, we're just going to keep chipping.
The 20-point loss does not define the season for LSU. The fact the Tigers made it to Atlanta after being picked 5th in the West in the preseason shows the program's growth in Brian Kelly's first year and provides the teaching moments to take advantage of those pivotal moments like the top teams.
It clearly defines who we want to be and that we're not there yet. And that's okay. The divide is not huge, but we got work to do.
Reporting in Atlanta, Ricardo LeCompte, 4th down on 4.
Yeah, thanks, Ricardo. The Citrus Bowl matches the team that lost to number 1 and the team that lost to number 2. Purdue fell to Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. Now, after the SEC title game, Ricardo talked about year 1 of the Brian Kelly era with Wilson Alexander with our partners at The Advocate.
What I thought was interesting what Brian Kelly said after in the post-game press conference, where he said that the gap between the LSU program and the Georgia program isn't that significant. Where do you think it does stand?
There is certainly a gap. Georgia has put top recruiting classes on top of one another for 6-7 years now to build a roster that even on a night where maybe it does not play perfect football, but it can take advantage of mistakes and it doesn't need everything to go its way in order to win a game. LSU is still at the point where coming into this against the #1 team in the country, it needed a lot of things to break its way to win a game. Brian Kelly thought that only 5 or 6 things, such as the blocked field goal, the interception off of Jack Bech's helmet, you pick out 5 or 6 things and maybe this complexion is different, and he's right. But the final score was still what it was for a reason. LSU is not on Georgia's level yet. There is certainly a gap. We'll see in the future exactly how far it is and how long it takes LSU and Brian Kelly to close it.
There were moments in the game where it felt like LSU can run with Georgia. You have to tip the cap to Brian Kelly in his first year going, to get LSU to this point where we're disappointed that they lost an SEC championship is a far better place to be at than what we thought we would have when we started the season. Would you agree?
Absolutely. This is a team coming into the year that was projected to win around 7 games, depending on where you looked in terms of sports books. It was filled with transfers, new coaching staff, new personnel, new ideas and new ways of thinking that all had to come together, and that's really hard to do. And they were able to do that and take advantage of opportunities to beat Alabama, to beat Ole Miss, and to win the SEC West in his first season. And that's an accomplishment within itself. This was maybe never a great LSU team, but it got to the point where it has been pretty good. And it did have some chances here to hang with Georgia. And it was impressive to see how well LSU played offensively against what had been the #1 scoring defense in the country. They've gotten to a point where they're beginning to accept those processes and build those habits and maybe lay down a foundation to build on for the future. And that's what really should be exciting for LSU fans about this season.
What would be the goal moving forward, and I'm talking about the bowl game, to see where things are progressing to finish with 10 wins this year?
Malik Neighbors said tonight afterwards, sort of asked about that they essentially said that they want to finish this off with a win. They don't want to end the year on a 3-game losing streak because of kind of like what you said. They're sitting there at 9-2 going into the Texas A&M game. You don't want to suddenly look up and you were 9-5. 10-4 and 9-5 look really different, kind of looking back on the year, and it gives you a lot of positive momentum heading into the offseason. Gives you just more belief in what else you can maybe do in year 2 next season. Brian Kelly said that he wants to get back to this game. He thinks that they can and then win it. They just need to kind of find a way to win that bowl game.
Yeah, now thanks to Wilson. Good stuff. A great season for the Southeastern Lions ended in round 2 of the NCAA tournament Saturday. This Jesse Britt touchdown in the final minute of the game sent the game at Samford to overtime. Southeastern got it first in OT. Cephas Johnson on the keeper, but inside the 10, Johnson fumbles. It hits the pylon, so that's a touchback, and Southeastern gets no points. Samford took advantage quickly. Quincy Crittenden on the quarterback draw finds the end zone. A walk-off touchdown. Samford advances 48-42. The Lions' season is over. Now up next, we will talk Saints, and get this, it still matters. We will break down the Monday night matchup with our Saints analyst, Nick Underhill. That's ahead on 4th Down on 4. But first, the Superdome Bowl matchups. The Atlanta Falcons lost today. It further opens the path for the Saints to potentially make the playoffs, but that path must include a win Monday night over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The most positive development in recent weeks, the Saints' defense has gotten better. They were very good in the loss to San Francisco, but of course the Achilles heel to this team all season, turnovers, not causing enough and giving up way too many, and turnovers absolutely were the difference in the Week 2 loss to the Bucs.
You know, sometimes you can look at it and say, hey, you know, we got to coach it better. And then there's sometimes where they just, you know, the helmet got it. But we always are emphasizing ball security. And again, Dennis every week gives that clear message, and he'll show examples of how the other teams are getting it out. You know, and I do think Joel does a great job with those guys, coaching them, working the individual drills, and talking through ball security.
All right, joined now by our Saints analyst, Nick Underhill. And look, Nick, I'm sort of calling this game the last stand. If you lose, the numbers certainly mean getting into the playoff hunt's almost impossible. But if you win, this thing is still alive. That's crazy to believe right now, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, it might not even be the last stand because Tampa Bay has San Francisco and Cincinnati in their next 2 games after this one. So it's a very, very weird division right now. Somebody's eventually going to win it or fall into it or whatever it's going to be. But I do think for practical purposes, you're right. They do need to win this game. They need to show that they can be something. They're getting more healthy. Marshawn Lattimore should be back on the field. Don't know if Pete Werner will be there, but I'm not sure how much of a difference that makes in this specific game. So they need to start showing that they can galvanize and come together and be a winning football team, and that all the excuses of the injuries are kind of, it's at that point now where that's over. So they have to show something in this game, I think, to have a chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, no question about it. And look, if you look at the injury list, there's a lot of names on it, but it's not a lot of the big names like it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. How much of a difference can just Marshawn Lattimore make in a game like this?
Well, in a game like this, I think it's significant. I mean, Mike Evans is somebody that's probably going to make the Hall of Fame. And if you are a Saints fan or you just watch Saints games, when he's up there in his gold jacket, you're probably going to be looking at him like, this guy's a bum. What's he doing here? And that's because Lattimore really takes him out of every game and has really turned him into kind of, a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type player in these matchups. Now, granted, Evans has had a few highlights, but in this game in particular, I think it's everything. And without him, I don't think you really have a chance to win. I think you need him on the field to be able to beat the Bucs. And I really think the reason they lost the last time is that he got ejected from that game. And if he never got tossed from that game, maybe Jameis Winston doesn't unravel and throw all those interceptions, and they find a way to win that game, and they're the team in first place right now. So I think he's huge for this team, and it's not just this game. I think he's really the guy that kind of makes your whole defensive scheme go. He's a lockdown cornerback. Those guys are rare, and when you have one and he's on the field, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, when you look at these two teams, Nick, neither one of them are doing anything spectacularly well offensively or defensively. The biggest difference I could find between the two teams is that the Saints, of course, worse in the NFL in turnover margin at -14. The Bucs are at least on the positive side of that. They're +2. And really, to me, that's the biggest difference between these two teams. This is an even ball game, and it was turnovers that made the difference in the first game, wasn't it?
It was, and they need to start finding some of those, and that's really the difference in this season. The Saints actually are allowing 197 passing yards per game, which is their best mark since 2013, and we're talking about some really good defenses from 17 on. They are not allowing a lot of passing yards, and that's without Lattimore on the field for, 70% of those games. The difference is they aren't taking the ball away from anybody, and to be a winning football team, you have to get some takeaways. It has to be more than 2, and at some point, luck, even if it's not opportunity or creating anything, luck eventually has to fall on their side in one of these games where a pass just bounces off somebody and finds its way to a defensive back, and that just has not happened, and it's really the weirdest thing in the world right now. But for them to win this game, I think they have to get a takeaway, and they got to steal a possession, and they got to protect the football.
Who do you like in this game? I mean, you're picking two teams that are both trending down. Who do you like?
I don't know who I like in this game. I mean, it's so hard to pick between either one of them. You got to eat a bag of ramen noodles. So if you got to eat one, I guess I'll pick the Saints just because the Bucs won the last one and they tend to be pretty evenly matched. And maybe the Saints are due for some luck, but logically it's kind of hard to side with them. But I don't know. Maybe things turn around for them in this game.
Thanks as always to Nick. Even at 4-8, it still matters Monday night. Now up next, the Alvarado Show. The Pelicans are red hot right now, and Jose Alvarado carried them Sunday. That is ahead on 4th Down on 4. The Pelicans have climbed all the way up to the number 2 spot in the Western Conference, just one game out of first place after a huge second half Sunday afternoon to beat the Denver Nuggets. Now, the Pelicans actually trailed the Nuggets by 1 at halftime. They outscored them by 16 in the second half to pull away. Jose Alvarado scored a career-high 38 points. New Orleans has now won 9 of its last 11 games, and the win over Denver came without Brandon Ingram. Alvarado was the star Sunday afternoon.
It's been a very long time since I had 38. I don't even know if I ever had 38. Now that I'm thinking about it, this one's my favorite. My only problem. This is the one I'm gonna remember. I promise you that.
Yeah, it was a hugely memorable game. Pelicans play thrice this week, all at home. Detroit Wednesday, then Phoenix. Huge games Friday and Sunday. We're back with more 4th Down on 4 in a minute. 5 local high schools will now play for state football championships in the Superdome this weekend. We're going to leave you tonight with a look at the quintet of semifinal winners. That's the Destrehan Wildcats, the Brother Martin Crusaders, the John Curtis Patriots, the Lutcher Bulldogs, and the St. Charles Catholic Comets. 5 local schools earning trips to the Superdome. Congratulations to all of them. We're out of time. Thanks for watching. We will see you next week on 4th Down on 4.